civic leader, crusader, brilliant and bold freedom fighter, Dr. Calvin Rolark, a steadfast, unwavering igniter, who lit a fire to civil inequity and pushed the world towards growth and prosperity. Rolark founded the Washington Informer in 1964. He uplifted American voices and so much more. His United Black Fund allowed people to live up to their full potential. It was the embodiment of love and humanity, which proved to be consequential. Calvin met Wilhelmina, and they formed a holy union. There was no doubt the two would start a revolution. You see, the system that they lived under was riddled with cracks and flaws. It just so happened that Wilhelmina was well versed with politics and laws. A bold and brilliant lawyer, she stood up for what was right. She showed strength and determination in every legal fight. She was victorious in her fight against discrimination. She knew that minorities were often subjugated and needed representation. Community activist, legal mind, and politician, she knew the illusion of equality was nothing more than fiction. The Rolark's public presence in the community began to grow. Protests, sit-ins, marches, refusing to accept the status quo. Denise Rolark Borns was her brilliant father's protege. She was an ambitious writer, determined to find her way. She attended Howard University, where she earned a law degree, and continued to branch out for other opportunities. After her father's unfortunate passing in 1994, loud and clear her calling came knocking at her door. Unabashedly, Denise stepped up to the plate, stepping into the role of her life's next journey and fate. For herself, Denise continued to make a name, as she was honored as an inductee to the D.C. Hall of Fame. Determined to educate, empower, and inform the community, Denise elevates sisters and brothers in power and unity. Denise lets the world know that we are descendants of greatness. We're stronger united, and no one can break us. False narratives, degradation, and brutal disrespect. Minority community members are long sufferers of sheer neglect. Raised by a lifelong civil activist, attorney, and politician, Denise controls the narrative with her insightful rendition. Troubling issues and unheard voices, often victims of unjust forces. There's more to our community than you'll ever know. Come, take a look inside, stretch your mind, and grow. Vera Abbott, a tenacious mother who has always been there, cheering, supporting, and inspiring Denise with fierce love and care. Let's not forget the ones who've brought us thus far. Strong voices of the past that made us who we are. Drawing from her mother's fortitude and benevolence, everything her mother did inspired Denise with reverence. As she exemplifies the incredible lives of remarkable history makers and exalts and pays homage to the overlooked movers and shakers. You see, Denise was put here as an agent to change the game, advancing true stories and victories of unsung heroes with no names. She's been a source of strength and resilience in many ways. Her efforts have been recognized through numerous accolades. Her father once described fundraising for the needy as his mission in life. He cast a large shadow over his impoverished community alongside his beautiful wife. Denise plants charitable seeds that promotes positive growth. Preserving true history, literature, and culture is her solemn oath. The Rolarks are the embodiment of unrelenting love, courage, humanity, and strength. Because of their contributions, their community stands tall, proud, and confident. As Denise continues her family's legacy of making the world a much better place, surely her father's joyfully looking with pride as he witnesses her brilliance and grace. She continues to shine on with luminous rays and optimistic views, remaining steadfast and focused with vigilance on reporting the good news. In 2020, a pandemic hurled in, knocking the world off its feet. Violence spiked, people lost hope, but there was no time to retreat. The informer needed to rescue people from constant fear, hurt, and insanity when TV Podcast was born to shine a light on goodwill and humanity. Denise's musically talented son produced the musical intro. Desmond Barnes is his given name, but he's known as DB Bantino. Lafayette Barnes IV brings in young voices, unadulterated blackness, making unapologetic choices. Raja and Lafayette work to bridge the gap while pulling themselves up by the bootstrap, preserving our rich culture 3 generations strong. With the Rolark Barnes, the legacy shines on. Denise doesn't do it for money, power, fortune, or fame. She does it because it's in her blood. It's in the Rolark's name. Shine on.
Where do you come to get all your news? Washington Informer. Where do you come to get all your news? Washington Informer.
Well, that was quite a surprise, and quite a surprise. And very much, Jeffrey. Thank you, Latanya Brooks. That was I realized I didn't know what was going on at first. I realized that was a poem, and we're celebrating our 2nd anniversary. I guess this is it today, right, Jeffrey? Okay, yeah, this is the 2nd year that we are bringing you Win TV on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and I really did like that tribute from Latanya Brooks. She said that I don't do this for the money. I do this for the money. I figure in time it'll come. But right now, no, just joking. But, we do this because we do want to give voice to those in our community who may not have access to what we have, which is a newspaper, website, now Win TV, and all of these tools. And it's not for us, it's for the community that we serve. So I think she got it right in that poem. And again, it was a very, very nice and special tribute. And thank you so much, Chevry, Latanya, and all of you all who watch us every week or when you can, and share the program with so many others. Yes, next Friday we'll begin our 3rd season of Win TV, and we're so happy that you stuck with us over the last 2 years. Again, happy anniversary to us, bringing you news that matters. And I always like to say, I hope you've picked up a copy of this week's Washington Informer. You can also read the digital edition online at www.washingtoninformer.com. And it would be unlike me, sorry, if I didn't let you see the real deal here, right? The real newspaper. And some people always ask you all still printing a newspaper? And yes, we do. And will be for quite some time, hopefully, as long as we have readers like you out there who still like those print editions. But you can always find us online at www.washingtoninformer.com. If you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit share so your followers can see the broadcast. And if you're watching on Twitter, be sure to follow us and we will definitely follow you back. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. That's one word, no spaces, straight, Washington Informer TV. And so we certainly, we're looking at those numbers. We are excited every time we get a new subscriber. And when you become one, we will be excited because you joined us as well. It's April 1st, and April is Jazz Appreciation Month. And there's also a day in April when we will celebrate the Earth Day, April 22nd. And so our upcoming shows, will be talking about DC jazz, the new, I think Brenda Cyrus is one of our writers. We'll be looking at the new generation of jazz musicians being born and developed right here in the DMV. And so we look forward to celebrating them. But we also want to talk about and to dedicate some of our shows to how we can keep our environment safe for all of us. And so we have, be sharing some tips on that and having some conversations about that. Monday, as you know, April 4th is the anniversary of the death of Martin Luther King Jr. And so we will be remembering him and joining the folks over at what I call one of our sister station and sister in spirit at WPFW. I know they'll be doing some broadcasts on the anniversary of the unfortunate assassination of Dr. King. And we know that that's also the week when all eyes will be on the Senate, because we hope to hear the good news that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has been named the first Black woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. Next Saturday is the Cherry Blossom Festival, and we are a sponsor, the festival parade, I should say. We are the sponsor, and I don't know about you all, I love parades. That's one reason why I get so excited about doing the MLK, Martin Luther King parade, but I like attending them too. Remember, Sherry, back in the day, it used to be all kinds of parades here in the city, the school safety patrol parade, all kinds of stuff going down Constitution Avenue. So I will be out there, weather permitting, and I have to say weather permitting, I'm not a cold weather person, but I will be out there that day and enjoying all the great performances, who include this year, believe it or not, Rare Essence, Freddie Jackson, DC's one and only Balloon Knights Senior High School Marching Band will be participating this year. So DC is going to be well represented in the Cherry Blossom Festival Parade. This year's Grand Marshal will be Laz Alonso, and we have our fingers crossed that he'll be joining us next week on WIN TV. We also want to let you know that Fathers Incorporated is accepting nominations now for Father of the Year. And if you want more information on that, go to fathersincorporated.net. That's one word, fathersincorporated.net. And if you know a deserving father who should be nominated for Father of the Year, there's a nomination form that you can pick up there, and or at least fill out there. And we'll be talking to Ernest Woodson and Dr. Kim Cobb next week about their annual Father of the Year program. And if you missed it again, the website is fathersincorporated, one word, .net. So we know you've heard or even had conversations about that incident last week at the Oscars. I mean, how can you, even if you didn't see it, you've heard enough about it. You've seen it on Twitter, all the social media channels, and every news channel, you name it. It's almost sort of a distraction from the war that's going on in Ukraine. It was a war on stage at the Oscars. And maybe that's a kind of a harsh way to describe it, but it was an incident. And one of the things that we're taking away from that whole incident is a conversation about what seemed to have precipitated the actions of Will Smith in his claimed protection of his wife, who is suffering from a condition called alopecia. So today, not only will we talk about alopecia, which unfortunately impacts a lot of Black women, but we're also going to have with us Howard University dermatologist, Dr. Sherry Fry, who will be joining us to talk again about alopecia and its impact. We will also talk to highly acclaimed composer and artistic director Nolan Williams, whose amazing play, Grace, is now appearing on stage at Ford's Theater. We also have local photographer, documentarian Cipriano Thompson, who has a new film, When They Speak, sharing stories of Black men and their experiences in America. Time for folks to talk on behalf of Black men. This has been sort of the what do you call it, the decade of the woman, particularly Black woman. But we cannot leave out our Black men. So we're so glad to have Cipriana with us today to talk about her documentary. And last, but of course not least, we will have all of the foodies watching. Tanorria Askew, a chef and author, will take us into her kitchen. Tanorria will share some earthly essentials for cooking, herbs, and spices. And I said last but not least, but I didn't mean to say that, because although the show, as you all know, when TV ends, what's going on in DC or what's happening in DC picks up right after us. And we're so excited to have on our show the host of What's Going On DC, Media Prince, who will be here to talk about some interesting tidbits that we've missed, but are important to us as Washingtonians about the Oscars. So looking forward to having him here with us. So we're going to now move to our broadcast with journalist Curtis Knowles, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Don't go away.
This is Win TV News, bringing you the news that matters. The NFL has created a diversity advisory committee to examine its hiring practices with a focus on senior level coaching and front office positions. The committee, announced by the league on Monday, was created in large part due to the lawsuit filed by Brian Flores, the former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, who complains of racial discrimination by the NFL and 3 teams specifically in the hiring regarding of senior level positions. Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, said in a quote, "We have more work to do, particularly at the head coach and front office levels." Queen Anune has become the first woman in history to become DC's assistant fire chief. Anune has 31 years of service, with the first 15 spent in fire operations before going back to school to become a paramedic. She has worked as an EMS supervisor, fire captain, and battalion fire chief of operations, and the fire prevention division before she was promoted to deputy fire chief of EMS in 2020. DC Fire and Emergency Medical Services Chief John Donnelly announced Queen Anune's promotion on Tuesday, saying, quote, "Promoting her was an easy decision for one of our toughest jobs." 21 states on Tuesday sued the Center for Disease Control and Prevention and other federal agencies to end the country's much-debated mask mandate on public transportation. The suit was filed in U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Florida and argues that the federal mandate exceeds the CDC's authority and intervenes with state laws banning forced masking. Some of the states involved in the suit include Alabama, Alaska, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, and West Virginia, and Virginia, among others. The CDC has declined to comment. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, announced this week that applicants once again must submit SAT or ACT scores, becoming the first prominent university to reverse the suspension of the requirement that was put in place because of the pandemic. MIT said on Monday that it was reinstating the test score requirement in an effort to be, quote, "more transparent and equitable in our expectations." The reversal could reignite the debate over the value of test scores in college admissions, which has been criticized for putting minority and lower income students at a disadvantage. Experts, however, have said that it is not yet certain if other schools will follow. The National Center for Fair and Open Testing said that more than 1,800 accredited colleges and universities that grant bachelor's degrees won't require students applying for the fall of 2022 admissions to submit these test scores. This is Curtis Knowles with Win TV News.
Thank you, Curtis. We're going to get on with the show because I am so excited to bring to you right now Nolan Williams Jr. Oh, Dr. Fry. Did I do that wrong? Okay, I'm sorry, Sherry. Yes, Dr. Fry, because we said we were going to start off with you. Dr. Fry, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I don't know how I'm doing today. It's our anniversary show, and Sherry's like, no. But anyway, I'm so glad to have you here today because, this whole issue of alopecia. Tell us a little bit about you, though, before we get into the show.
So, hello, everyone. I'm Cherie Fry. I work at Howard University's Department of Dermatology. And I am a native Washingtonian, so it feels good to be here serving my community. And my clinical interests are actually in alopecia and pigmentary disorders.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, welcome. We always like, I'll call you my sister girl from DC. Always love to have knowledge folks from the DMV, but particularly the district, who are doing great things. And glad you're there at Howard. How did you decide to pursue this area of medicine?
It actually chose me. I was interested in not working directly in the hospital. I wanted more long term relationships with patients and just found a home in dermatology.
Wonderful. I'm not, I have to ask this. Did you watch the Oscars the other night?
So I was at a conference and I did not watch it live, but trust me, my phone went crazy. And so I was able to view the incident probably just minutes after through our social media networks.
So, how did it hit you when you heard that Will allegedly went to defend his wife who was suffering from alopecia? I mean, what was your first thought?
Well, initially, I didn't know what caused the incident. It wasn't until I viewed the recording and heard the joke and saw him approach and then strike Chris Rock. So initially, I was quite confused. I didn't understand, what led to this. And then I was able to view the clip and I gathered all of the information from that.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, were you aware that this was a condition Jada Pinkett has been suffering from?
Yeah, so Jada Pinkett, when she shaved her head this time, she did a post and a video, and I did see that. She described her ongoing battle with alopecia, which is the medical term for hair loss, and stated that she decided to shave her head specifically because of that.
So, it's in your practice, Dr. Fry, is that tell us what alopecia is first.
So alopecia is a very general term. I think that that's important for people to understand. Alopecia is simply the medical term for hair loss. And there are a number of types of alopecia. So again, saying someone has alopecia simply means that they are suffering from some form of hair loss, but it does not distinctly identify what type of hair loss they're suffering from.
And what are some of the conditions? Because someone said I heard someone say one day that sometimes it's related to stress. But what are some of the things that can cause hair loss?
Yeah,
besides aging?
Absolutely, right? So it's known that there's an age of what we call senescence, where we all experience a little bit of slow growth and decrease in density. Some of the more common forms of hair loss are androgenetic alopecia, which is related somewhat to hormones, and that can happen in men and women. There's alopecia areata, which is an autoimmune condition where your immune system is attacking the hair follicles. And then there are forms of scarring alopecia, which may be caused from inflammation at the level of the follicle in the scalp, and that can damage the follicle over time. And then there's a form of alopecia called telogen effluvium, where we get a lot of shedding of hair, and that commonly happens after a woman gives birth or after a surgery. And then there's traction alopecia, which we see when there's too much tension on the hair. So again, a lot of different types of alopecia or types of hair loss.
And, women today, we do a lot of things with our hair, right? I mean, we've heard the worst case scenario with the woman in California who actually put Gorilla Glue in her hair. I mean, we do a lot to give it that look, shape, feel, even on the natural side. Do any of those things actually contribute to someone becoming or losing hair?
Absolutely. So there, again, as I described, traction alopecia, which is a condition where there's too much tension applied to the hair. So certainly tight or heavy hairstyles can pull. The hairs are attached to your scalp by these small fibers. And so too much tension or pulling on them can lead to permanent damage to those areas. So there are some specific hairstyles that can contribute. I will tell you that for many, many decades, a specific type of hair loss that Black women suffer from called central centrifugal cicatricial alopecia, or CCCA for short, was thought to be due to things like the use of a hot comb or due to the use of relaxers. And it's only in the last few years that we've seen that there's a genetic component to it. It occurs in association with things like fibroids. So we're learning a lot more about the etiology of these conditions, what causes them. But for a long time, some of these conditions, Black women were blamed for their hair loss. And so that really slowed down, I think, research and development as far as finding out what the actual cause. And some of these things are just exacerbating factors. They may not cause it primarily, they can exacerbate it. So it's very important we know that. But there are some conditions where, it doesn't happen simply because of how you choose to wear your hair. There's a genetic component to it.
And, for women that, well, first of all, let me back up, because you mentioned Black women and then the slowing down of the research. Does alopecia, is that a condition that predominantly impacts Black women?
Alopecia affects women and men. So again, alopecia is just the medical term for hair loss. So we really shouldn't assign it to any particular race or gender.
Wonderful. And I want to talk a little bit about stigma or shaming, or just the emotional or psychological impact that hair loss has on individuals, men or women, that are suffering from hair loss.
There are a lot of studies that show that it has a tremendous psychological impact. I mean, rates of depression and anxiety surrounding it, social anxiety. It is a huge burden on patients. And often in the community of dermatologists, we set aside extra time for these appointments. I often have women who are extremely tearful in my office, and we spend a lot of time consoling them. Hair loss is one of the conditions where I think that I see people become the most emotional in my office.
And how do you treat patients? I mean, we all are bombarded, what's the word? Impacted, I'll say, by these commercials that we see on television all the time. Balding hair, use this, put this cream on, take this vitamin, do all these different things, right? And so, how do you treat someone suffering from hair loss?
Yeah, so the first thing we have to do is correctly identify what the type of hair loss they're suffering from. And so sometimes that you need a biopsy. So we need actual tissue samples to determine, is there inflammation? And depending on what we see on the biopsy, we can use topical prescription medicines. We can use oral medicines. There are various injections we can use. We can even use patients' own blood products called plasma, which can help to stimulate hair regrowth in some cases. And then for patients, unfortunately, who've had hair loss for a long time, because it's not uncommon, patients will come in and say, yeah, this has been going on for 10 years. And there are some areas where we can't recover hair. There's hair transplantation for some of those areas as well. So it really depends on the type of hair loss. I honestly get a little bit, I get a little bit passionate, I should say, when I see all of these over-the-counter supplements and products for hair loss, knowing that the majority of them are not going to work for patients. And if anything, they can delay a diagnosis and treatment by a board-certified dermatologist who remain the experts in hair loss.
Is it reversible, Dr.
In
Fry?
certain cases, yeah. In certain cases, it is reversible. Now, the longer the hair loss has been going on, the harder it is to treat. So we do need to see patients sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm. And what would be an initial sign, particularly for, I guess, the most common kind of alopecia that you may see? What are those initial signs?
So I would say the one thing people start to notice is that they can see their scalp through their part. So if you're the type of person that parts your hair in the middle or on the side, all of a sudden now you're seeing more of your scalp. So that's something that people will come in and notice. If you see any distinct spots where the hair is not growing, it's just not keeping up in length. If you're having any areas where you get intense itching or even tenderness, it hurts to touch or manipulate the hairs. Those are early signs. So you definitely want to come in and see a dermatologist.
And better to do it sooner than later.
Absolutely. I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah, yeah. And is there anything that you would say? I know people with hair loss, I mean, they do resort to hats and wigs and all kinds of things just to cover it up. But,
Yes.
what do you say to folks who think that this is the best way to go now? I'll never be able to wear my
So there
head
are a lot
exposed.
of, yeah, so there are a lot of there are a lot of dermatologists who will see patients where the hair loss has been going on for so long because, we've done such a good job camouflaging it. If it's one thing we can do, we can whip it to the side, cover it up. We'll find a way to make sure that that we can, walk out the house with confidence. And that's important and that's great because treatment takes time, right? There are some cases where I'm working with the patient for a year before we see the results. But I don't want someone camouflaging it and continuing to hide it and years go by because that is allowing that condition to continue and go unchecked. And then we reach a certain point where that hair loss could potentially be permanent. So yes, cover, yes, make sure, you feel comfortable when you walk out the house, but don't do that in place of seeing someone.
And I guess the last thing, because, we don't realize that men have, like you said, suffer from hair loss. We see it a lot. It's become very stylish now for men to shave their heads. And this is a way of, as they get older, one of hiding the gray. I'm talking about some of them, but hiding the gray, but also, hiding the fact that their hairlines are receding or there's that, little circle in the top that they get.
Well,
Is that the same thing?
Yeah, so most men suffer from androgenetic alopecia, but there are a considerable amount of Black men that I treat for those inflammatory and scarring types as well. So we can't ignore them. But unfortunately, in our society, for men, it's more socially acceptable. Now, that doesn't mean that men don't also carry the psychological burden of having hair loss because they do. But just in general, if we're talking about societal norms, it is more widely accepted for a man to go bald. And even in some areas, it's lauded. People will say, oh, you look great with your hair shaved. Like, they prefer it. And I think now as a country and a society, we're becoming more comfortable with women with, closely shaven heads. And hopefully we can continue to progress in this fashion where natural styles and basically where women can wear their hair any way they want and they feel confident doing that. I don't know if we're there as a society. On an individual level, sure, but there's still, this societal expectation that women have nice, long, flowing hair.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Dr. Fry, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about this because we didn't want to overlook the seriousness of a medical condition that was part of the whole conversation the other night. And so we had to reach out and we're glad that we found you. And I think Sherry put some information up in case people have more questions, they can reach out to you at this. Is it an email address that you put up, Sherry? You want to share that with us, Dr. Fry?
Oh, yes. So that I am active on social media. And so this is Instagram, the Skin Doc on Instagram. And then for anyone interested in being seen, I am seeing patients at Howard University's Department of Dermatology.
Wonderful. If you don't know whether you're really suffering from hair loss, but you think you might, I mean, I don't want to call it a diagnosis.
You can still schedule an appointment. It's always better to come in and be evaluated. I love that appointment when someone comes in and they're scared about something and I'm able to say, hey, no, this is okay, but maybe we check on it in another 6 months or maybe we check on it in a year just to be sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's good. So go see Dr. Fry. Let her, kind of look at your hair and see what's going on there. And really, I think kind of helping folks to feel good about, whatever choices they make with as it relates to their hair and their entire body. So I'm glad that you're there, and I appreciate you taking some time to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. Take care. It's great. Yeah. I mean, we fight through so many things just to sort of keep ourselves together and quote unquote accept it, based on whose terms, I don't know. And that almost, it's sort of a great segue to our next guest, who I was so excited about 10 minutes ago, and I'm still excited about having him on our show. And that's Nolan Williams Jr., whose play actually, I saw it, Nolan, the other day, the play Grace at Ford's Theater. And I know I want to talk about some other things, but I have to say how personal that play was for me. And I thought it was really, really fantastic. But before we go there, I want to welcome you.
Hey, Denise, thanks for having me on.
Good. You've done some major projects. You've done a bunch of major projects. We're going to talk about the two you've done in the last year. One, the statehood documentary that you did, and also the I Have the Right to Vote video that we've used a couple of times. I mean, talk a little bit about Nolan Williams and how you even got into this. I'm waiting to see you at a Grammy or at a Tony Award sometime soon. But anyway.
Listen, from your lips to God's ears. I did win 3 Telly Awards last year, and that was amazing.
Good.
We are grateful for that.
Well deserved.
Listen, I am a composer and producer and a cultural curator, and I've been in this game for a while, largely through my company, New Works Productions. We've been producing projects here in Philadelphia and Atlanta and other places, and just grateful to always be able to celebrate our culture, to find ways to elevate and present our culture, and to leverage the power of music and the arts around social impact. That's the work that I love doing, and all of my projects center around that. So those projects you referenced, I Have a Right to Vote, that was our voting rights anthem that we produced. By we, I mean my producing partner, Del Mott Edgewood, and myself, my company, New Works. We put that out during the election cycle, the presidential election cycle, and we wanted to raise awareness around voting rights and equal access to the ballot box. And we were able to get stars like Billy Porter and Billie Jean King and Hill Harper and Carla Hall and Christopher Jackson, Ebony Joanne, Ryan Swain, and Sheila Johnson. I hope I'm calling all those names. But we reached an audience of over 1.3 million people through that project, and won a 2021 Telly Award Bronze Prize for Best Social Impact Video. So that was
fantastic. Or it is. Yeah. I mean, it's still so relevant too. So
yeah, absolutely. And then of course, Becoming Douglas Commonwealth, a project that you were a part of. We were able to partner with the Executive Office of the Mayor to draw attention to voting rights and statehood for the citizens of the District of Columbia. And we were able to put together a wide cast of civic and business and community leaders, congressional leaders like Jamie Raskin and Steny Hoyer and Eleanor Holmes Norton, and business leaders like Chef Jose Andres and Ted Leonsis, and our current mayor, 4 of our former mayors. We put all of these people together and so many more to really make some compelling arguments as to why the citizens of DC deserve statehood. And that documentary aired in 5 CBS markets as well as DC TV. So both of those projects are still viewable. If you go to my website, nolanwilliamsjr.com, you can check out those projects.
Nolan, I mean, just like Dr. Fry, you're native Washingtonian, right? Grew up, educated in public schools.
Naturalized.
Okay.
I was born in LA, but I moved here when I was 4. So DC is home. And, I'm so proud to be a product of this city.
But what was the evolution? How did you get from, the 4-year-old, kindergartner or first grader, and now, a 4-time Telly Award winner? I mean, what was that path like for you?
It's been a slow and steady journey. I always say, I talk to young people, and very often I find that they want to run, to use a track metaphor, they want to run dashes. Like they're really interested in getting where they're trying to go as fast as possible. But I've always seen my life as a marathon. And, it's the slow, steady stream of work. It's the consistency. It is the work ethic that has to be impeccable. It's the standard of excellence. And it's building project by project, event by event, to a place that you really establish a great body of work. And that's what I've been doing for over 30 years, largely through the work of my company, New Works Productions, which I founded in 2003, and through the amazing partnerships that I've had with some of the leading arts and arts organizations and cultural institutions of our time. So really grateful for that.
So this marathon that you're on has now taken you, which, you're no stranger to any theater in the nation's capital, but now on the stage of Ford's Theater, you are
Yes.
wowing audiences with a new production called Grace. And we want to talk a little bit about that, but I want to get deeper into it. But I want to know, what was your inspiration behind this production?
Grace is all about celebrating food, family, legacy, and culture. And the real impetus came from a former mentor of mine, Stephen Newsom, someone that you knew, former director, Smithsonian director, who's no longer with us. But Stephen was the one who said, Nolan, I think you need to do something around African-American food traditions. And I was like, Stephen, I'm not a foodie. But what he knew is that I was a history buff. And sure enough, once I started to unearth the history of our food traditions and our food ways, the history really started singing to me in a way that I didn't originally know what I was creating. I just followed those impulses and started writing music. And lo and behold, 8 years later, here we are. It's a full-blown book musical, thanks to the brilliant direction of Robert Barry Fleming and the brilliant co-authorship of the book by Nicole Salter, really, and the amazing partnership of my producing partner, who is Del Mott and his company Edgewood. So that's what the show kind of, that's how it's evolved. And let me say this also, that there are works that inspired this, the history, and we're seeing the history being unearthed more now with projects like High on the Hog on Netflix. What was really not voiced or talked about much is that the culinary industry in this country was established by African Americans, because at that time, cooking was considered a demeaning form of work. And so it was Black folk who were in kitchens that were creating these traditions. And it's wonderful that folk like W.E.B. Du Bois documents this. So in his book, The Philadelphia Negro, we discovered that there were these early pioneers, these men and their wives and families that were establishing the culinary industry in and around Philadelphia. And from having seen the project, those names are Bogle, Augustine, Prosser, Dorsey, Jones, and Minton. And it was from that that I took the last in that lineage, that name, and created this fictionalized family based on that real history, and said, what would happen if Minton's Place, a restaurant established by the real Henry Minton, what would happen if we fictionalized like that restaurant still being in existence more than a century later, and with all of the changing dynamics that we have in our country and in urban centers like Philadelphia, what would that family be experiencing right now? And that really is the premise for the show.
I think it was excellent. And I'm, full, as the word everybody uses now, full disclosure. Full disclosure, I'm not a great fan of musicals. And so I said, I'm sorry. But I sat down and I said, oh my goodness, are they going to sing to me all night long? And I was so taken away
Wow.
by the music. They could sing to me all night tonight and tomorrow night.
Wow.
I
Wow.
thought it was just fantastic. So you have sort of broken that, and I've seen a few, but I figure if I go to an opera, I'm expected, but you've broken that,
Wow.
whatever tendency in my head, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. The voices were fantastic,
Wow.
and the story. Some people probably think I'm crazy. I was probably one of the ones that cried doing the music, doing that movie called Barbershop, because the
Hmm.
story of a family-owned business that was struggling, as you said, as things changed. And that's what I got out of this. This was a
Yeah.
family-owned business that had some great history, as you talked about, the Minton family. And it was around food. And just even
Yeah.
the I don't want to tell it all. I want people to go see it. But even the struggle between family members and their concept of each other as it related to food, I thought was just marvelous the way you were able to weave all these different things together in this production.
Wow. Thank
How
you.
long will the play be at Ford's?
We're running until May 14th, so
Okay.
there's plenty of time for folk to come, and we hope that you will come. I love the fact that you said that you're not into musicals. I've heard that comment before, but I think people are finding this play to be different because it really is a play with music more than it is a typical kind of musical.
Musical,
Yes, we
right.
do sing to you the entire evening, but a lot of what we're singing about is really integral to you understanding who these family members are,
Hmm.
what they aspire towards, the challenges that they face, and the joy that they find, even in a time of mourning. That is so um, uh, integral to how we mourn, right? Even in times of greatest grief, we still find something to laugh at, and we
Right.
find joy in remembering, the things that there are to lift up about the person, the memories of that person that we're mourning the loss of. So this musical really captures that spirit in a wonderful way. One minute you might be crying, the next minute you'll be laughing hysterically. So.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, that was me. That was me.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
really it is really a fantastic production, and I would welcome everybody that is watching the show. If you haven't been to see it, make sure you go run on over to Ford's Theater. Take family, friends,
Please, please.
children, everybody.
Yeah.
It's really that kind of a family event. What do you have coming up? Anything that we should be preparing ourselves for?
So, of course, we're going to be moving Grace forward beyond this run at Ford. So we want people to be connected with the show. So you can go to gracethemusical.org and become. Did I say that right? I hope. No, I think it's gracethemusical.com. And become a friend of Grace the Musical, and that way you can learn more about the development of that project. I think I'm a social impact resident, or what they call a social practice resident at the Kennedy Center. So
Right.
I'm going to be developing programming even beyond Ford's, all centered around African American foodways and food traditions. So folk can look out for that. Really excited about the opportunity to deepen the conversation about this history and about this celebration of our culture. And then in the immediate, I'm actually premiering a new song that was commissioned by Washington Performing Arts and the Choral Arts Society for their upcoming concert at the Kennedy Center called Living the Dream, Singing the Dream. That's coming up on April 10th. So folk can come check that out. I've written a song called We Are the Ones to Heal Our Land. And that's going to be a moment. And then my company, New Works Productions, is partnering with Choral Arts Society to produce the East Coast premiere of Damian Jeter's An African American Requiem that will also be taking place at the Kennedy Center on Monday, May 23rd. Right before the pandemic, I think you know this, I formed an orchestra through my company, the New Works Philharmonic Orchestra. So we're reviving that orchestra. And our New Works Voices of America choir will join with the Choral Arts Society and other voices. And that will be an amazing experience. Damian Jeter is a brilliant composer, and we're so excited to bring his work to the East Coast. That really speaks to the plight of African Americans in these days and times. So, yeah, that's on May 23rd at the Kennedy Center. And then I'm developing a few other musical projects. So beyond that, just sitting around twiddling my thumbs.
I was about to say, this is a man. I
Purpose
mean,
month.
you are a gift to us here in Washington D.C. I'm sure a man who never sleeps. You got just sort of creative thoughts always in your head, and we're so honored and blessed to be a beneficiary of everything that you've been producing. It's just been fantastic.
Thank you so
Don't
much.
overdo it. Get some rest, but at the same time, keep it coming, because we certainly do appreciate everything that you have produced over your lifetime, actually.
Thank
So
you.
again, we want folks to go see Grace. The audience was full the other night of
Yeah.
chefs.
Yeah.
It was good to see Chef Rock and some of the other folks. I think the two Cheesecake Sisters were there, and
Yes, they were.
and so it was good to see folks in the food space coming to enjoy Grace. So
Absolutely. And listen, Denise, thank you for always being such a supporter, and thank you to the Washington Informer, your paper, for just always being there when we need you. We appreciate all that you do for this community. So thank you.
Thank you. And we do have a story coming out next week on the production. Like I said, Brenda Cyrus will be, and she won't even tell us, Nolan,
the review,
official review.
I
mean, the publisher, I'm like, well, what is it going to say? You have to read it. So I'm looking forward to it, but I know that she enjoyed it. So, all right.
Let me just ask folks, listen, before I go, let me just ask folks, go to nolanwilliamsjr.com, and there's a lot that's there. The projects that we referenced are all there, but also just kind of stay connected with the work that I'm doing moving forward. Thanks again, Denise, for having me.
My pleasure. And good luck. Just hang in there. Thank you.
All right, blessings. Bye.
All righty. Please go check out his website. I mean, if you don't know Nolan Williams Jr., you need to know him, and you need to be aware of all of his work. You do need to go to Grace and check out the production there. You'll be talking about it over Easter dinner and any other meals that you have coming up, just to appreciate, as you said, the tradition that Black folks have given to the whole foodways and food preparation and all that. I mean, it makes you leave there feeling very, very proud. So next we're going to bring Cipriana Thompson to our platform here. Cipriana, are you there?
For the longest, there was the belief that, Black men were absent and not good fathers. And, again, I think of myself as a person who really engages history and engages science. And, we know there are multiple studies out there that suggest that, not only are Black men engaged, but Black men are more likely to read to their children, more likely to take their children to school, more likely to play with their children, more likely to engage their children than any other group, right? Those are the facts. Right? But somehow when we talk about Black men, we still have this really problematic belief that we're somehow not good fathers. That's crazy. Don't believe the hype.
That's powerful, Cipriana. I didn't know that we were going to have sort of that little piece there to have that conversation, and everything that I heard just sounded so true. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So now you are a photographer, videographer. Talk about who Cipriana is first.
So I'm a photographer, not a videographer, but okay. I've been taking pictures as long as I can remember, from, my blue Fisher-Price camera in 3rd, 4th grade, all the way to, what I shoot now professionally. And I've always just been interested in documenting life, right, as it happens, the important things, the little things, every bit of that is so important just in our history and in everything we do.
And do you do this on a free basis, or do you have a company? How do you live off of pictures?
So, I have multiple streams of things that I do. I am actually an engineer by education, so I am a civil engineer. But as far as photography, yes, I have Cipriana Thompson Photography. I've been in business for over 10 years, primarily shooting, corporate events, conferences, real estate work. But this side of my business, this documentarian piece, has been what's been trying to get out for years. And so this is the first documentary that I've done, and it was a beautiful experience. And I look forward to doing a lot more of this.
And why? Why was this topic of focusing on Black men so important to you at this point in time?
So actually I started this project back in 2014 as a photo project. And so I interviewed almost 50 men, and this was a bit after Trayvon Martin was murdered. And I just was really interested in hearing what Black men had to say, and having direct conversations with them. And so we had some great conversations just about Trayvon Martin specifically, but also about their experiences in America, the interactions they've had with law enforcement, their hope for our community, and all of those things. And in 2020, I revisited this because I knew there was still more work to be done with what I gained the first time around, and decided to partner with John Ledbetter at Sunchase Media to put together this documentary as a final act of, this first piece of work.
Who were the men that you selected to interview for this? Were they, age range? Were they all older men, or how did you select your subjects?
So the men ranged in age from 25, being the youngest, to my dad, who at the time was about 76. So he was the oldest. A lot of them fell kind of in the 40s age range. And there were 13 men in the film. I think about 10 of them were in my original project back in 2014, 2015. And then there were 3 folks that I added to this mix. And generally, there were so many men who had great things to say. And so I just kind of pared down the list and found who, I thought would be impactful and would have great things to add to this film. And
was there a common theme that came out of those interviews, or the things that these men had to say?
There was certainly commonality, right? Different backgrounds, different men, different experiences, but they all have been Black men in America. And in that way, they've all faced certain things. I don't care what their credentials are, their degrees are. They've all had these interactions that are tragic, to be honest. And that was common, right? Regardless of where they're from or what they do or what their home looks like or who their wife is or whatever the case is, they've all faced these struggles of being Black men in America.
Sometimes when you interview people, and I have that experience here with Win TV, our segment is really short, so it may not, unlike, say, the history makers, for example. I know when they sit down and do a focus on an individual, that interview can take up to maybe 6-12 hours, a couple of days, because it does take people, a moment to really feel comfortable and to express what's really. Tell me about that experience with the folks you interviewed, the men you interviewed.
Right. So, the interviews were at least 30 minutes each, sometimes a little longer, a little shorter. And there was great material there. I can say that, the part of chopping it up and weaving it together as a story is not my ministry. The documentary would have been 5 hours long if you left it to me. And so luckily I was partnered with John Ledbetter, who is amazing at this work and kind of weaving it together to tell a story. And he's also a Black man, right? So there are pieces in there that he could feel different than I would. And so he was able to weave it all together and take out those pieces and tie them all together, which even in that, it shows the commonality amongst these men. And it also shows that they have differing opinions on some of the topics we discussed.
But you found that they were really pretty free-flowing with their thoughts?
They were, some more than others.
Okay.
Right. Some more than others became comfortable. I think they felt that they were in a safe space, so that helped. And we kind of had those conversations later on about how it felt to have those conversations. But once they started talking, you could tell that for them it was impactful. I don't know how often they get asked these questions and have the opportunity to share their own experience. And so once they started talking, we were going.
Yeah. What question did you find that you asked? I don't know how many you asked, but what question you asked that you found was either the most difficult for them to answer or the one that, just seemed to open them up?
I think it just varied depending on the man, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But to be honest, the first question, what does it feel like to be a Black man in America, was the one that a lot of them seemed exasperated about, because it's a dichotomy, right? There's two sides of that. There's this beautiful thing of being a Black man in America, of being Black. And they all felt that piece. But then there's the other side of it that is the struggle. And I think all of them kind of danced between those two things in answering that question, because it's such a layered and complicated answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't wait to see this, particularly, again, I keep going back to what happened on Sunday at the Oscars, and a lot of Black men saying that was just a moment that really, caused them some angst, just to see two Black men on this stage that they're going to see forever and ever. So it'd be good, to have, to see this project. How can people see the project, and how can they support it?
Absolutely. So we did our first screening a couple weeks ago. We're now working on additional screenings locally and in other cities across the United States. So if you go to whentheyspeak.com, we will keep that updated. There's a place you can put in your information if you like to be kept notified of our upcoming screenings, which we plan to do soon. Also on that same site, you can make a donation. You can sponsor. We're still looking for sponsors to help us move this project forward. And also, if you have some space that you'd like to perhaps have us come to do the screening, we're looking for opportunities to do that as well. I think this is widely applicable. Looking to do it on HBCU campuses. Dr. Abdullah, the president of Virginia State, is in this film, and we plan to do a screening there as well. But so HBCUs, I think it's great for corporate spaces, right? Let's have some real conversation in places where this conversation isn't happening. But we're open to a lot of ideas around where to screen it next. And for now, that's the place to see it, right? Wherever we show it in public spaces. But ultimately, we will find other ways to get it disseminated.
And how long is it?
It's about 45 minutes. So it's relatively short for everybody with a short attention span. It should show very well.
Wonderful. Cipriana, thank you so very much for being with us and for sharing this project with us. We wish you the best of luck, but I think everybody needs to take a moment to just hear Black men speak. And so we're glad that you've given us that audience. So wishing you the best of luck. And we may be reaching out. The Washington Informer might want to host a screening.
That would be amazing. Let's do that.
So let's talk about that. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. All righty. We are trying to wind down, and I have been running over time because I'm so, interested and curious in all of our guests today. So I want to now talk about, we were talking about food before. We're going to bring Tanorria Askew on to tell us about her cookbook, Staples Plus 5. Is that the name of it, Tanorria?
Correct.
And so tell us, we've been talking about a play with cooking. Now you've got the cookbook. Tell us, what is in this book, and what inspired you to produce it?
Yeah, so Staples Plus 5 is taking the ingredients that we often take for granted, like flour, sugar, beans, dried beans, canned tomatoes, rice, all of those things that we often have in our pantry. And when we open it, we say, I don't have anything to eat. And so it's taking those ingredients we tend to take for granted and making meals from them, full meals. And the 5 is that you can have up to 5 additional ingredients outside of this list of staples that I recommend. And so with this list of staples, it is great for someone who is just moving into their first apartment, or a new couple, or someone that just needs some more inspiration because they've been cooking for a long time. This staple list kind of gets you back to the basics.
You want to share what some of those 5 ingredients are?
So the additional 5 ingredients are outside of the staple list. So the staple list are the things you keep in your pantry: flour, sugar, pasta. but the additional 5 ingredients, it's any additional 5. You're going to make all of these recipes with either only staple ingredients, or you can have up to 5 additional. And those 5 additional are usually your proteins and your perishable items. So if there is a recipe in the book for pantry spaghetti, and it's essentially making your own spaghetti sauce from scratch, because we often have canned tomatoes, garlic, onions in our pantry. But you want to add your ground beef or your ground turkey or your ground Beyond Meat to the dish. That protein option is one of the additional 5.
This is good. I mean, you're making me hungry, but this is really great. And, you know, as you give advice through your book, I mean, folks need to know that you are an experienced chef. You've also been on Master Chef with Gordon Ramsay. I mean, tell us what that experience was like.
It was pretty amazing. I started my company, Tanorria's Table. It's a personal chef service where basically I will cook for you wherever you send me. I create a restaurant experience in your home. And so I started that business before going on MasterChef as kind of like my side job, hoping that in 3 to 5 years maybe I can make it my full-time job. But my experience on MasterChef and really being solely focused on cooking, it created the sense of validation for me that I was meant to do that and that I could make a career out of it. And it also turned my 3 to 5 year business plan into an 18-month business plan. So
Wow.
After filming the show, I came back, and 2 months later, I quit my full-time job of 15 years and decided to pursue entrepreneurship.
You know, one of the things that's fantastic, and I want to give you a hand for that. That's great. You jumped out there, and you've been doing it ever since. But you know, as we're in this midst of COVID, right, and people were talking about store shelves, you know, running out of food or the cost of food. What would you tell people that you know, we just talked about the you know, the basics, and then I mean the staples and the other things, but how what would you advise people right now if you go grocery shopping? Just make sure that in your pantry, as you said, you have these things. What are those things?
You know, I feel like they're the things that I tend to buy in bulk, and that is flour and cornmeal, potatoes, rice, dried pasta, canned beans and dried beans. You can make a great no meat Monday meal with beans. Onions and garlic, they tend to last pretty long as long as you store them properly. Right now, for those who eat bacon, I feel like the price of bacon is astronomical. So when you see it on sale, it's ingredient I consider a staple ingredient. Buy it and keep it in the freezer. So buy some extra of it. Parmesan cheese. It's the one cheese that lasts a really long time, and you can use it so many ways, whether you're using it to make a Parmesan crisp, which is in the cookbook, and that's just a great snack, or you're using it to top a pasta dish to help kind of make it saucy and a little creamy. Or the end of your Parmesan cheese, you can drop it in a pot of soup or stew, and it just helps build flavor. And so those are some of the ingredients that I'm like, you can really make a lot out of those few ingredients, or you can really stretch them. And so I feel like those are the ones that when you see them in the store, buy them in bulk, learn the best ways to store them, and you can really make the most out of those.
I mean, this is inspiring. If people had questions, do you have a website?
I do. My website is tanorriastable.com. It's 1 N, 2 R's. And you can find me all over on social media as well. Everything is Tanorria's Table. Website, Instagram, Twitter, all of those. I'm always dropping recipes. A lot of the recipes from Staples Plus 5, while they are paying homage to my family, primarily my grandmothers and my mom, I started writing those recipes and putting them on the website first. So you can get a sprinkling of Staples Plus 5 on there, but then of course you can get the book, and you can find out where to buy the book on my website as well.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm one of those people who have been cooking for a long time. I've really slowed down, and I get home late in the evenings, and I stand in front of the refrigerator and just look.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm like, okay, never mind. But anyway, you sound like you've written this book for me and people like me. So I appreciate that because that is difficult. I mean, there's some people who talk about meal prep on Sundays. I mean,
Mm,
preparing meals. But
yeah.
give some advice about that too. If you've got a
Sure.
busy schedule and you really can't cook every day.
I am a huge fan of doing a little bit of prep ahead. For example, my husband and I, we both work from home. So lunchtime is often a big salad that I will make for the both of us, or I'm really into snack plates right now. And I think that is the ultimate meal prep because you're buying, meats and cheeses and nuts and fresh fruit and fresh veggies. Get those prepped at the start of the week and then have just a plate of snacks at your desk. And that way, that keeps you from grabbing the bag of chips or Doritos. You're eating something a little bit better for you. And make a homemade spread. There's a apricot gorgonzola cheese dip in the book. And so
Oh,
you
okay.
can add that to your snack plate. Or my meaty mushrooms that are in the book, or my spicy roasted cauliflower that's in the book. It is excellent as a side dish at the start of the week. And then as you get to the tail end of the week, just throw the leftovers on top of a salad.
Mm.
So I love roasting things because you can stick them in the oven, set a timer, and walk away. And so I will roast up a lot of veggies. I'll roast up cauliflower, mushrooms, Brussels sprouts, etc. And I can use those as side dishes throughout the week for lunch or for dinner. But I'm also just going to toss it in a salad at the end of the week.
Wonderful. Now I'm starving. So anyway, I am going to thank you so much for being with us. I definitely want to, can we put the copy of the book up again, Chevry, and inspire, hopefully encourage everybody to go out and get a copy or to visit you on social media to learn and share all of the questions and the recipes. This is fantastic. And we certainly do appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All righty. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, last but not least, and we are running over into his show right now, the Media Prince. So, we're going to make this really quick. I know he's been waiting for the past hour. Are you there? How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. There couldn't be a better segue. One, to have a conversation with you. Two, for you to sort of hype, what you're going to be telling us after the end of Win TV. And also just to, give us some highlights of some things that you've talked about with regards to this event on last Sunday. You took a whole different approach to this, and I want to talk about that.
Yeah, I wanted to really celebrate the host at that night because that was DMV greatness at its finest, especially coming off of Glenn Close last year, hyping up, the butt and everything. So it
Right.
was like really awesome to know that not one, but two DMV sisters were hosting the Oscars. So it was kind of a celebratory moment for our area to see us on Oscar stage hosting.
I mean, had you not said that, and I knew it, but I didn't, and I feel like, phew, that went over our heads, but I knew it wouldn't go over yours. So that's really good. And so, I mean, what do you know? Talk about the two hosts, of course.
Yes,
Regina Hall. Go ahead.
and Wanda Sykes, Regina Hall and Wanda Sykes, and thankfully to the What's Going On DC show, it allows you to really search celebrities and really find out where they're from. And Lord and behold, Wanda Sykes is from Maryland, and that was something I wasn't privy to until I had to report on her. So it was a nice win for our area, and she definitely loves the DMV. She comes back quite often, more than we actually know. I bumped into her at MGM, and she said she's always here. She just stays incognito.
Well, you need to get her on What's Going On DC. We need to see her and have conversations actually with both of them. And Nolan said he went to elementary school with Regina Hall.
I know.
At Parkview, and that his mom taught them. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing. And I got to interview Regina Hall a few years ago. Her and Common, they had a movie, I think it's The Hate You Give. And Regina Hall also mentioned that she's best friends with Mayor Bowser.
Wow, interesting, interesting. Well, I mean, I think those are the highlights, and then now we're getting ready to go into the Grammys. You talked about last year's Grammys. What do you have that we need to know about with regard to Grammys on Sunday?
So this Sunday is going to be. I'm wondering which arena they're going to go into. Last year's Grammys, they definitely stepped heavy into the digital market. Like if you really paid attention to the Grammys last year, they really took a digital approach with how they set up the performances. They really gave you a lot of content tidbits that what you could take away from the Grammys and put it on social media, and it fit right into play. This year is the first year where it's going to be back outside again. Of course, they had some delays earlier this year because of the pandemic, but this looks like an exciting year. A lot of people are. She's supposed to be the prize winner to take home a lot of Grammys this year. So I'm excited. And the DC Grammy board here has been really making noise with programs throughout the city. So I think they're really pumping up the excitement for this year's Grammys. I'm excited.
That's fantastic. So, Media Prince, tell us, what is it you really like to try to get folks to enjoy about what's going on in DC? What is the hook for you or for your audience?
Honestly, it is I love hearing people saying, wow, I didn't know that was happening here.
It
I
always
love
happens.
that. I love how I can bridge the gap between, your traditional news, well as giving it to you in an entertaining way, to where it doesn't feel like you're watching the news. It feels like you're getting informed and you're feeling comfortable at ease as if you're a part of the show. So I've learned that what's going on in DC has become that bridge of, if you didn't know, now you know. And the
Right.
people love us now. We
Yep.
just got voted top show in the DMV by DMV Coalition, who polled us around the entire
Woo!
DMV.
Congratulations. That is great, great news. That is great news. And so I'm glad that, we were that you're doing this program is fantastic. I know I enjoy it. And every time I see it, I'm like, I didn't know that. And it's intergenerational. You know what I'm saying? You kind of run the gambit. It's really truly DC, and I think that is
Yes.
what's been missing and what you brought to the table. So I think you and your producer, of course, Lafayette Barnes,
Yes.
has helped to bring the show together. So,
Yes.
I mean, any great plans for the future? Now
Um,
that you got this award, I don't know. I guess it'll be on you. Take a picture of it. We want to flash it. Oh, we lost you. Oh, there you go.
am I with you still?
Yeah, you're here. Uh-huh.
Somebody just tried to call me, but no, I'm excited we're in our season two just premiered. So we have a new intro. We're just spicing up how we tell the stories, how we break the stories up. They're now in segments now. So it feels like a flow. So I'm just really excited to see where we're going. Me and Lafayette have ideas every week. We have a meeting and we just play with what our creative minds can do with the show and let it expand from there.
All right. Well, you're doing a great job. Want to see more, and we're going to get out the way so that we can let what's going on in DC come up next. So I see you're traveling. Safe travels, and we'll talk to you soon. All righty. Wow, that was great. So that brings us to the end of another segment of what's going on in DC. I'm sorry, Win TV. I'm so excited to go to what's going on in DC. So thank you so much, Media Prince, and all of our guests today. I hope you've learned something from this program. I appreciate all of you all who put comments in our program. Thank you, thank you, thank you so very much for watching. Thank you, Chevry, for 2 years. We've sat here at this table, and you all noticed something? My pencil sharpener's still there. So I remember the first show, someone said, is that a pencil sharpener in the back? Yes, it is. We meant to open the show with the pencil sharpener, actually showing that it still works. But anyway, you all have a great week. Be safe. Maybe I'll see you at the Cherry Blossom Festival. Remember, just give a warm remembrance of Dr. King on April the 4th. And it's Jazz Appreciation Month. So maybe we'll see you at a jazz concert someplace along the way this month. Until then, have a safe weekend. Remember, we're not quite out of COVID yet, so stay safe, and we'll see you next Friday.
Here we go, here we go, here we go again. I'm not even going to waste your time. Y'all know why y'all here. Cue the intro, folks. We bring you culture and taste, art and entertainment. We bring you history and politics. And we got all things DC. I even got you covered, Maryland and Virginia. Welcome to What's Going On, DC. Welcome back to another week. Let's start off with politics. Mayor Bowser has proposed a $9.4 million camera expansion plan. Ooh. With this plan, it marks DC as the most expensive city in the country for moving infractions. In Maryland General Assembly passes a bill to ban ghost guns. In DC, Council member Trayon White posts this. Federal judge has blocked DC from allowing minors to get vaccinated without parental consent or knowledge, and praises itself for the work behind the issue. Arlington police are investigating 4 reports of random pellets and paintballs being shot from vehicles in VA in the last week. DC native Raja Karuth to compete in his first ever NASCAR Xfinity Series race. Baltimore is going viral after Ukraine was given $14 billion by the USA, but their conditions in the city still stands. While on Baltimore, take a look at this 80s picture of the late great Tupac Shakur in the Baltimore streets, courtesy of DMV Hoods and News. Congratulations to Queen Anune, a DC native with over 30 years in public service. She was just promoted as DC's first woman assistant fire chief. And thank you to the DMV Daily for that topic. Let's move on to entertainment. Congratulations to VA's own Missy Misdemeanor Elliott on having all 6 of her albums be certified platinum, a first in hip-hop history. Hey, 757, stand up. Take a look.
I can't stand her. Me, I'm super fly. Super duper fly. I can't stand her. Me, I'm super fly. Get your freak on. 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 When they say my name, talk more jump, but won't look my way. She's a see, I got more cheese. Back on up while I roll up my sleeves. Is it worth it? Let me work it. I put my thing down, flip it and reverse it. It's your primitive, it's why I need them. It's your primitive, it's why I need them. Everybody here, try to get your backs off the walls. Misdemeanor said something.
Will and Jada with the message. Baltimore, stand up.
Good morning, everyone. God has let me live another day, and I am about to make it everyone's problem.
DC's own 3-0 Black with Blackish star Anthony Anderson. Nicki Minaj gives out pouring advice and birthday wishes to DMV's own Ari Lennox. Take a look. Hey DC, is this the best invention ever?
This is my new purchase. We're gonna see how this thing works. Well, that part doesn't work worth a shit. All right, we'll see what happens.
DC's own top dollar Sweezy brand, Sweezy, has caught the likes of Boosie and his team.
It ain't easy being Sweezy live at Boosie Estates, you hear me? Shop Sweezy.com right now, new merch on the way. Motivation, you hear me?
Check out pics from DMV's own Regina Hall and Wanda Sykes from the Oscars. You know, that crazy night. Oh yeah, shout out to Amy Schumer too. I feel like we're supposed to say that since she's in one of the picks. In sports, the Commanders post Kyle Hamilton as pick 11 for mock draft Monday. Take a look.
Against the defense like this. Picked up the pressure from the middle linebacker White. Downfield and Hamilton again!
Unbelievable. Look him turn on the Jets and track it. Never loses sight of the football. Knows where he's at on the field. Make sure he drags the toes. This young man is a playmaker. What an unbelievable job by the safety.
Now let's move on to what's happening here in town. The Hyattsville Branch Library in PG County is officially open to the public. The newly renovated 40,000 square foot library will now also offer as an event space. So go check it out now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, be safe, be smart, and have a great weekend. We love you for watching. Peace.
Civic leader, crusader, brilliant and bold freedom fighter, Dr. Calvin Rolark, a steadfast, unwavering igniter, who lit a fire to civil inequity and pushed the world towards growth and prosperity. Rolark founded the Washington Informer in 1964. He uplifted American voices and so much more. His United Black Fund allowed people to live up to their full potential. It was the embodiment of love and humanity which proved to be consequential. Calvin met Wilhelmina, and they formed a holy union. There was no doubt the two would start a revolution. You see, the system that they lived under was riddled with cracks and flaws. It just so happened that Wilhelmina was well versed with politics and laws. A bold and brilliant lawyer, she stood up for what was right. She showed strength and determination in every legal fight. She was victorious in her fight against discrimination. She knew that minorities were often subjugated and needed representation. Community activist, legal mind, and politician, she knew the illusion of equality was nothing more than fiction. The Rolark's public presence in the community began to grow. Protests, sit-ins, marches, refusing to accept the status quo. Denise Rolark Borns was her brilliant father's protege. She was an ambitious writer, determined to find her way. She attended Howard University, where she earned a law degree and continued to branch out for other opportunities. After her father's unfortunate passing in 1994, loud and clear her calling came knocking at her door. Unabashedly, Denise stepped up to the plate, stepping into the role of her life's next journey and fate. For herself, Denise continued to make a name, as she was honored as an inductee to the D.C. Hall of Fame. Determined to educate, empower, and inform the community, Denise elevates sisters and brothers in power and unity. Denise lets the world know that we are descendants of greatness. We're stronger united, and no one can break us. False narratives, degradation, and brutal disrespect. Minority community members are long sufferers of sheer neglect. Raised by a lifelong civil activist, attorney, and politician, Denise controls the narrative with her insightful rendition. Troubling issues and unheard voices, often victims of unjust forces. There's more to our community than you'll ever know. Come, take a look inside, stretch your mind, and grow. Vera Abbott, a tenacious mother who has always been there, cheering, supporting, and inspiring Denise with fierce love and care. Let's not forget the ones who've brought us thus far. Strong voices of the past that made us who we are. Drawing from her mother's fortitude and benevolence, everything her mother did inspired Denise with reverence. As she exemplifies the incredible lives of remarkable history makers and exalts and pays homage to the overlooked movers and shakers. You see, Denise was put here as an agent to change the game, advancing true stories and victories of unsung heroes with no names. She's been a source of strength and resilience in many ways. Her efforts have been recognized through numerous accolades. Her father once described fundraising for the needy as his mission in life. He cast a large shadow over his impoverished community alongside his beautiful wife. Denise plants charitable seeds that promotes positive growth. Preserving true history, literature, and culture is her solemn oath. The Rolarks are the embodiment of unrelenting love, courage, humanity, and strength. Because of their contributions, their community stands tall, proud, and confident. As Denise continues her family's legacy of making the world a much better place, surely her father's joyfully looking with pride as he witnesses her brilliance and grace. She continues to shine on with luminous rays and optimistic views, remaining steadfast and focused with vigilance on reporting the good news. In 2020, a pandemic hurled in, knocking the world off its feet. Violence spiked, people lost hope, but there was no time to retreat. The informer needed to rescue people from constant fear, hurt, and insanity when TV Podcast was born to shine a light on goodwill and humanity. Denise's musically talented son produced the musical intro. Desmond Barnes is his given name, but he's known as DB Bantino. Lafayette Barnes IV brings in young voices, unadulterated blackness, making unapologetic choices. Raja and Lafayette work to bridge the gap while pulling themselves up by the bootstrap. Preserving our rich culture 3 generations strong. With the Rolark Barnes, the legacy shines on. Denise doesn't do it for money, power, fortune, or fame. She does it because it's in her blood. It's in the Rolark's name. Shine on.